It's about the restoration of our republic. We want to educate, encourage, enable the power. We stand for integrity, honesty, self-reliance, self-defense, and most importantly, no compromise on our foundational principles. This is America's Voice Now.
Find America's Voice Now on Facebook and at americasvoicenow.org. Here's Michael Evans.
Good morning, America. You're listening to America's Voice Now. My name is Michael Evans. I'll be your host this morning. Appreciate you riding with us. If you're joining us live on our streaming feed on our website, thank you very much. Appreciate that. You know, there's an opportunity for you to capture the entire program live every morning from 8 to 10 a.m., and you're welcome to call in. If you do that, you can call us at area code 417-204-5141. That's 417-204-5141. You know, one of the things that we see here as a problem on a national level or a national scale is the fact that the media is no longer doing their job in terms of educating and informing Americans about the truth of what's happening in our nation. One of the worst perpetrators of that propaganda is the New York Times. And in many areas, they have completely and utterly abdicated any level of responsibility to the public in reference to that, to this issue of whether or not they should be truthfully educating the people or whether or not they are simply carrying the water for this and for this administration and specificity. You know, when President Bush was in power, and you all know if you're a longtime listener, I'm no great friend of the Bush administration, but when they were in power, these guys railed against him every day on the front page. Now, there are virtually no stories out there which are critical or negative of this president, and anyone that they do put out there where they are obligated for all intents and purposes to expose what's going on, if only because the rest of the nation would be wondering, well, why isn't the New York Times talking about it? Then they couch it in this soft soap kind of nonsense. So we're going to talk about that this morning. Our first segment is going to be the Ministry of Propaganda and how the media is basically betrayed our interest. Our second topic is the FBI instituting a national facial recognition system. And I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, the truth is that we are seeing a national embracing of Big Brother. And it's promoted predominantly by an article like it's in Communist News Network. I'm sorry, CNN this morning. They have an article out there called Embracing Big Brother, How Facial Recognition Could Help Fight Crime. Well, the truth of the matter is, most of Americans know that crime has been on the decline. At least violent crime has been on the decline for a decade now. The truth is that this is another example of media propaganda. They're encouraging you to buy into this iris and facial recognition nonsense in the idea that this is soft tyranny being peddled on America. It's the idea that if you are indoctrinated to it long enough and hard enough and loud enough, eventually you'll buy into it. And I got to tell you, I'm insulted. I'm incensed. I'm angry. And you should be too. We're going to talk about this, and we're going to look at this article, and we're going to look at it with a critical eye to evaluating why and how you are being misled and brainwashed, quite frankly. You know, media is programming, and they use that term television programming for a reason. There's a phrase that used to be used when I was a younger guy into the computer game, and it was called GIGO, garbage in, garbage out. If you put garbage in, you're going to get garbage out. We're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in our media and what is being pumped into the minds and the eyes and the ears of Americans across the nation. I tell you, I have had it with the lies and the misrepresentations. I've had it with people who are pushing their ideological agenda through something like the media, which is relied upon by so many Americans to believe that there is really some truth to what they say. Our third topic is NSA and how they've penetrated internet providers illegally. Now, they've hacked into their fiber, and the reason that they've done that is because they didn't want to have to go to court and get permission from a FISA court or any other organization to hack into this, or they did obtain it illegally through the court. And we're going to talk a little bit about how this is essentially a state-sponsored terrorist act. And I mean that in its truest sense of the word. The United States government, based in Washington, D.C., has become a state sponsor of domestic terrorism. You heard what I just said? A state-sponsored domestic terror organization. And it's time Americans knew the truth. And it's time we stop soft-pedaling it and trying to pretend it's really not there. The elephant is not only in the room, it's standing on our feet, it's sitting on our lap, and it's time we acknowledged it. You hack into an internet company's private network, that is illegal. You can pass any law you want. You can utilize any rationale you want. You can try to couch that any way you want. If it's illegal for you, it's illegal for them. End of discussion, end of argument. Period. Our fourth topic is 80 million Americans are losing their insurance. How Obamacare is really a bait-and-switch tactic for really data mining. That's the truth. That's what this is all about. They couldn't give a rat's rear end whether or not you're covered by insurance or whether or not you lose your insurance or any other nonsense. All this is about is one thing: capturing your information. There's a new company I heard interviewed last night on Fox News that has set up, for all intents and purposes, a duplicate of the healthcare.gov program or website. They're an independent insurance broker, effectively. I'm going to explain to you what they do, and I'm going to caution you and warn you: do not participate in Obamacare. Look at your $95 penalty as an antivirus fee for the year. Okay? Americans better opt out of this healthcare program because, one, I want to bring it to its knees, and the only way to bring it to its knees is to break it financially. You want to have some say-so in what goes on in your government, then act with your wallet, your pocketbook, and your feet. Vote that way. Break the back of this thing, and let's bring this stupid camel down by making sure that we are the straw that breaks that camel's back. Opt out, do not participate, and vehemently refuse to play. All right, let's get into our first topic. I'll tell you, I'm pretty upset this morning. When I sit down here and I look at what's going on here, and I hear what the New York Times is talking about with this diplomacy shift on the Iranian issue, this article they've got in their paper this morning, longer deal term with Iran. Basically, this is in the New York Times. It's pasted up on our Facebook page. It's up on our website. You can find it there. I'll put the links in the subject matter. In the subject area for the video, if you're watching this on YouTube. Obama signals a shift from military might to diplomacy. And this is nothing other than, and it's not even thinly veiled propaganda. I mean, this entire article, and it's 2 pages, is really, for all intents and purposes, it is nothing more than a glossed over example of how the Obama administration is fighting so hard to utilize diplomacy. I got to tell you something. I am tired of the media in this country, which has so much influence, so much power, wields a baseball bat and a bully pulpit like nobody's business, and they sit there and lick the boots of this tyrant over and over and over. When George Bush was in power, these guys did nothing but deride him and berate him for the same policies that this piece of crap is administering, and worse, up on Capitol Hill. I've got to tell you something, folks. If you are fooled into believing that this guy is some messiah to the country still, I don't know what you're waiting for in terms of proof. This guy is the most lawless president we have ever had. I've posted a ton of stories up on our Facebook page this morning about all of the things that are completely violative of how this administration is lying and misrepresenting the truth to Americans, how they are instituting things which are draconian, Marxist, and totalitarianistic, dictatorial policies. You know, this idea of facial recognition, what is it? You're not allowed to walk out into the street without some guy from a fusion center sitting there running your picture through the system? I mean, how is that freedom, ladies and gentlemen? This is not the freest country in the world. This is rapidly becoming the most surveilled nation on earth. And all of that data is not going to serve you well. And the New York Times and Communist News Network are actually out there soft-pedaling this tyrannical crap to us. We're going to talk about Communist News Network in a minute. But I got to tell you, Breitbart has a story out there this morning that says the news agencies kept the last year's worth of Iranian talks secret. They knew, and they didn't tell you. Do you think you might have had some input there? Or did the administration learn their lesson from Syria and say, listen, we can't let those people know what we're doing here, because if they find out about it, all holy heck is going to be raised, and we're going to be blocked from doing what we want to do. That's exactly the truth, and that's why the sycophantic press and the mainstream media are hiding the truth from you, because they don't want you to know. I'm telling you, the media, if you have not found alternative sources of media by this time in your life, I don't know what else to say to you, but you better start hunting it down. You can go to our website. We've got a whole list of them. I talk about them every day. I give you links to articles and newspapers and magazines and online websites that are alternative media. Yes, I intersperse that with the Ministry of Propaganda because I'm trying to teach you how to be a critical thinker and evaluate both the pro and the con so that you can formulate and make your own opinions and decisions. But it's up to you to recognize when you're being buffaloed, when you're being manipulated, when you're being fooled, when you're being led down a rosy path, a faulty path. The Ministry of Propaganda is committing media treason on these people, on you. And it's time somebody recognized it, pointed it out, and said, we've got to stop them. How do we stop them? Well, first of all, you write letters to them. You comment on the articles that are out there and point out that this is all nonsense. It's a lie. It's a misrepresentation. It is nothing more than sheer fantasy. The second thing that you do is if you subscribe to the New York Times, cancel your subscription. But when you do so, do it in writing so that you can explain why you're canceling it. The same thing with the Washington Post and Communist News Network. Don't turn it on. Call your cable company up and say, I don't want Communist News Network. In fact, if you want to be smart, cut your cable altogether and use the internet as your source of media, alternative news sources. Stop following this. I mean, listen, I keep cable on in my home for one purpose and one purpose alone. That is to follow and watch what the media is talking about so that I can expose it to you. But the truth of the matter is, I watch no other television. It costs me, $80 a month to keep on so I can watch 3 or 4 channels on television. It's absurd. The media has a lock on the news system. They will not allow any other alternative systems on there for news. Every one of your local affiliates of ABC, NBC, CBS, they're all traitors. Look at how they soft soap garbage into your mind. And the truth is, they're not sitting there even giving you real political stories. Instead, they distract you with garbage and crap. Look at the stories that you're told about. They make a big deal out of every little stupid, happy little news story. Oh, the doggy fell down the well and 75 people got together and dug the doggy out of the well. You know what? I couldn't care less. Our country's coming apart at the seams. The entire thing is coming apart like a cheap house of cards on a windy day. And all they're interested in is telling you about the little puppy who fell down the well. And when they do give you a national story, they give you the superficial glancing blow. They never dig in depth. And even when they do, they end up having to come back like 60 Minutes and admit that it was all bungled nonsense. They don't even do their own homework. More often not, in addition to that, they're borrowing other people's stories and information to write their own stories. And then they hide from you the truth when they knew a year ago that the U.S. and Iran were in nuclear containment talks. They kept it secret from you. Now, if that's informing you, I don't know what I don't know what definition you read. Do you have Merriam-Webster's dictionary, or do you have the Obama administration Marxist dictionary in your house? I mean, this is absurd. The AL Monitor knew about the secret talks in early November, but they held on to it at the administration's request. The AP claims they didn't run with the story because they couldn't get the White House or the State Department to confirm the secret talks were occurring. Well, guess what? That's where investigative journalism comes in, Associated Press. You're supposed to turn around and say, we have reports that the administration is having secret talks with Iran, and they refuse to respond to us. You don't just hide it under the rug because you can't confirm it. You explain with a disclaimer that the story may not in fact be true, but this is the reports that you're getting. And since the State Department won't respond to you, you can't possibly confirm or deny. That's investigative journalism. But I know you're not interested in investigative journalism anymore. You're not interested in journalism at all. All you're interested in is Goebbels-like propaganda nonsense. You're fed trash, and then you pump that into the minds of your watchers, your listeners, and your readers. And it's shameful. Every media organization out there is rife with it. And listen, make no mistake about it. Fox News is not your friend. They do the same thing. Why won't they talk about Common Core? I'll tell you why. Because Roger Ailes is a participant in Common Core, and Murdoch, the guy who owns them and the Wall Street Journal, he doesn't want nothing to do with Common Core because he's embedded in it up to his elbows. The truth of the matter is, you can't trust anything from mainstream media. Not one single note. Everything they feed you is couched around a bunch of mind-bending, mind-altering nonsense to mislead and misdirect you. And if you haven't recognized it by now, that fault is on you. There's plenty of media out there that you can trust, or that at least you can use to in fact inform yourself about what the real truths are that are going on around you. I'm not saying you should take anybody's word for anything, not even mine. These are only my opinions. These are my observations. These are the way in which I see things after I read or educate myself about what's going on in the media. I always pick on these media stories on a daily basis because I'm trying to get you to be a critical thinker. I'm trying to get you to say, I've gotten this lead and I'm going to follow it. Your job is to be an investigative journalist for your own benefit, not to spout it out to the world. And once you have found the truth through investigation, homework, and required reading, then you're supposed to go out there and you educate those around you. You educate and then you inform. You motivate them and then you activate them. And if that means that you have to take a leadership role, then doggone it, pull your bootstraps up and grab a leadership position and do it. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. I know you don't have the skill set for that. Guess what? Too bad. The country is coming apart at the seams. If you're not going to take a leadership role now when we're still living within a peaceful environment, what makes you think you're going to be in a position to take a leadership role later when somebody's pointing a gun at you or threatening your safety of your family or threatening you with imprisonment for speaking out? You don't have the courage to do it now. The truth is that everything that is going on in this country is either being hidden from you by the media, or those who are speaking out about it are either being compromised or co-opted or corrupted or coerced in some way, shape, or form to shut them the hell up. Where are all the major talk radio hosts that should be breaking these stories and not just sitting out there rambling on about how, Sarah Palin got dissed or some other nonsense? Where are they in terms of organizing a massive, peaceful, civil protest that says, we've had enough and we're not going to take any more? Where are they in terms of saying, you know what, Glenn Beck and Rush Limbaugh and Mark Levin and all these other guys, they're all going to get together and they're going to utilize their concerted voices to say, we are going to create a whole movement. They don't have to lead it. All they've got to do is advertise it, promote it, push it. Massive, peaceful, civil disobedience and resistance. Marching on Washington, marching on the state capitals, and demanding their resignations. We won't leave until you do. The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of the road of sitting around on the couch waiting for somebody else to walk up and tell us what to do. And that whole mentality has been so ingrained in you and so ingrained in your children and your wife and in your husband and in your family and everything that you've been taught that you willingly are sitting here allowing our country to turn into a dictatorship. The media is assisting. They're working actively at it in some cases. There's an article out this morning in Reuters about how spies are worrying over a doomsday cache that has been stashed by Edward Snowden. Well, let me tell you something. As far as I'm concerned, I'm okay with a wholesale dump of that. I already hear the arguments. I can already see the emails as they come in. Are you crazy? That would endanger lives and blah, 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 blah. Well, let me tell you something. It will create a wholesale sea change, a sea level change. I get it. Well, guess what? We've been trying all the other ways. None of them are working. None of them. I want to expose the entire rotten mess and let sunshine in. Let it kill the bacteria. Let it kill the viruses. Let it burn the treason out. I'm tired of hearing about, oh my goodness, the fallout would have this guy killed and that guy killed. Guess what? Announced that there's a 30-day period of time in which the United States government has got to pull out all of its embedded individuals. Let's pull back and stop sitting here sycophantically reiterating exactly what they want you to believe. I don't want to see American soldiers killed, so pull them back. You got 30 days to do it. And then, boom, dump the entire mess. Let the world see. And then, when the outrage begins, you'll have the ability and the courage, perhaps, combined with millions of other Americans to say, you know what? The exposure here is so great. The treason here is so great that we must do something. We must rise up as a collective group and civilly, peacefully, massively go into a position of disobedience and demand a return to civilian government. We are now under a dictatorship. I'm telling you right now we are. You may not agree with that, but I'm telling you, it's not much longer that you can sit and argue the points. You can play around with it for a little bit more, but the truth of the matter is, while you're sitting there gambling with our future, our nation, the doors are closing. The steel fist is slowly but surely shutting, and it's got its hand around your windpipe. Why not drop the bomb and let everybody see what's inside of it? Why not break it open? Give me a good reason. Send me an email to mike@americasvoicenow.org. Go ahead and write me a letter and tell me why this is such a bad idea. Then I say, go back to these governments and say to them, look, these people who you claim are you have no control over, they're within your country boundaries. You either contain them or we will. And I'm going to tell you something. The next terrorist attack on America is going to result in the demise of your government. So you are either going to go out there and you're going to contain and control the animals within your cage of influence, or we're going to take your entire cage out. And then pull back. You want to attack America? Great. You want to beat each other to death and kill each other, stone each other to death with rocks? You go right ahead. But we've had enough. We're going to take care of our own for the first time in a very, very, very long time. We're going to spend the hundreds of billions of dollars, the trillions of dollars we've been pumping into the world's coffers to secure and close down our own borders, to make sure that that border is so tight that no terrorists are coming across the Mexican border. Nobody's coming in on a visa and then overstaying it and then sitting over here teaching somebody else how to make a bomb. For all of this surveillance and nonsense that they tell us that they're doing to keep us safe, their track record is pathetically shameful. And everybody ought to know it. They're not interested in really tracking terrorists. In fact, they couldn't care less. All those terrorists do when they do set off something or they do create or they are successful in whatever actions they are, the government looks at that like, well, that's great. We don't care about collateral damage. This gives us an excuse to steal a little bit more liberty away because they're really interested in domination of you. They know they can't dominate someplace over in Afghanistan or some third world ridiculous caveman in Iraq. They don't care about them. They care about you. They don't want to disarm somebody over there in some third world country. They want to disarm you. And if you think that they're going to get better when they've disarmed you, if you think they're actually going to work harder to protect you after they've stolen your ability to defend yourself, you got another thing coming. I'm tired of America sitting around whining, complaining like a bunch of mewling kittens. Feed me, feed me. I'm helpless. You're not helpless. You're only helpless because you think you're helpless. But it's time you got off your couch. It's time you stopped cowering in fear. It's time that you spoke out, even when you are afraid to do so. The simple truth of the matter is, analyze it. Why are you fearful? You're fearful because of retribution. And if you fear retribution, that's all the example that you need to see that your government is operating in tyranny. The example itself, your fear is also the antidote. It is also the proof that you've got a disease. It is the symptom that says your cancer is rampant and running through your body, infecting your organs and your bones, and it's metastasizing into every aspect of your life. But you don't want to take action because your fear has got you captured. You're like a deer who's paralyzed by the headlights. And instead of quick movement to get away from the danger, you stand there until you get smacked like a grease spot all over the front of a Mack truck. I just don't get it. I don't get it. I really don't. I can't understand why Americans are willing to sit here and allow, you know what, even if it's for your own personal safety, what about your children and your grandchildren? Are they not important to you? What about the unnamed generations who will come after? Do they carry no weight in your mind? What is it gentlemen would have? What is your price to sell out your own future, your own nation, and the futures of your children? Is it your fear of retribution? Is it your loss of a job or your house or your car or your land? The Ministry of Propaganda is feeding you treason. And like the old song goes, just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. You can find us on the web at americasvoicenow.org, on our Facebook page at facebook.com/americasvoicenow. You can find this and every other program we do on YouTube at youtube.com/americasvoicenow. I get it. I'm plain talking. I'm tired of the nonsense. I don't want to be PC. I don't want to be nice about it. I just want the truth out there. And sometimes the truth hurts. If you look in the mirror and you're hurt by this, that ought to tell you everything you need to know. We'll be back in just a moment.